Story time is upon us. Once upon a time, in a little town called Reno, Nevada, my father had a favorite gas station. And it was because it was the cheapest gas in town, let's face it. And he always told me how cheap it was. And so we went there one year for Hot August Nights, drove the coupe, my wife and I, and I was pretty sure that the gas station was running some sort of scam because it was like much, much cheaper than all the other gas stations around. And so, being that I built my car, I knew exactly how much the capacity of the gas tank was, but I needed to prove it to my father. So, of course, we went to his favorite gas station, got gas, and somehow my 14-gallon gas, exactly to a T, held 16 and a half gallons. And my dad didn't believe me. He's like, oh no, your car's, it's no way. So I proved it to him, which what we did was when my wife and I got home, we ran the coupe completely dry. I went to the gas station with her to verify, and I took a single 1 gallon gas can and I filled it up with a gallon of gas, like 1 gallon on the thing. Took pictures of it, gallon of gas, put that in the car, drove around with it like almost on empty until the coupe ran out of gas, which, if I'm honest, I ran out of gas in a lot of cars all the time since I was like 15 because I just had better things to do than pay attention to the gas gauge. So we drove around, ran out of gas, put 1 gallon of gas in, drove directly to the gas station, and filled it up to where it was right coming up to the fuel net comes out of the back driver's fender right to the top of the cap on that 46, and it held 13.4 gallons, or I put 13.4 gallons in it. So for a total of 14.4 gallons is what that car held, to where if I put one more drop in it, it was coming out. And we videoed it, and she was there to witness it. And, called my dad and said, okay, we did it. And he's like, all right. And I said, it held 14.4 gallons exactly, not 16 point whatever. And I said, that gas station is running a scam on people. It might be the cheapest gas in town, but people are buying an extra couple gallons. So, spreading that out, it's not the cheapest gas in town. It's not even close. But they all have those stickers like, certified, verified, whatever. I don't buy it. I don't buy it one bit. Not at all. Yeah, that was a quick nothing story time. I've run out of gas. I could tell you about the time I ran out of gas with my wife 2 times in the same car within a block of each other. I think they were like a couple weeks apart, but we were on the same road and we ran out of gas the exact same spot twice. One day here, a couple weeks later, same exact spot, same car. I remember what car that was. Could have been a pickup, but she was never happy. Anytime I ran out of gas, she was never happy. I don't know why. What's the big deal? You have to walk a few miles or whatever to get gas or coast into the gas station. Anyway, I remembered a story. Not the story I was going to tell you guys that you're going to remind me, but I remembered a story that I wanted to tell you guys, and it probably will upset my mom and dad and my sister, my little sister. Sorry ahead of time. I apologize. You guys don't know about this, but I'm going to tell you anyway. It's at my expense, trust me. And if you want to check out my sister and her husband, their channel is Steve and Steph, Steven, the letter N, Steph, Steph, Steve and Steph, or their other channel is called The Resale Killers, and they do, extreme unboxing or, retail stuff that they buy and they resell, stuff that Costco gets returned at Costco or these big department stores, and they'll buy like a pallet or 20 at an auction and like pull the stuff apart that's perfectly good and sell it to people for way cheaper than what they can get a new for. And they built a pretty good channel, and they do some pretty cool trivia. And my sister is always plays. They're pretty funny. They play pretty good practical jokes. They got a great sense of humor, and they're really funny to watch. Like my sister plays some pretty good practical jokes. In fact, one of the practical jokes, this has nothing to do with story time, that's my favorite one, is my sister bought a white bath mat, and this bath mat turns like blood red. Like if you get water on it, the water looks like blood. And so she snuck it into the bathroom while my brother-in-law was in the shower and replaced their bath mats. And so when he stepped out of the shower, she didn't film any of that. She stepped out of the shower. When he stepped out of the shower, he stepped down onto the bath mat with wet feet, and blood went everywhere all over the mat. It was classic. It was awesome. She comes up with really awesome things. I think they do challenges. They did like the really super hot chip challenge, that ghost pepper chip or whatever chip. I think she ate both chips. She's like me. She has like a high pain tolerance, but she has a worse pain tolerance. Like hers is like she doesn't feel any pain, which is really funny because my brother-in-law, he was in the military and he's really tough, like really tough guy, and she puts him through the ringer. It's hilarious. I feel bad for him sometimes. I'm like, oh man, you're kind of mean to him, but it's he plays along. He's got a great sense of humor, and he's a gearhead too. In fact, he still has I think his best buddy, when they were in high school, had a 66 Mustang Fastback, 289, 4-speed hypo car, good car. Steve still has it. Really sweet car. I think he had some guy building like some cool like pro touring suspension out of it. It's going to be pretty neat. Anyway, so my sister, she got her first car was a Challenger with a big block. And it was almost the color of this box here, blue. It was like the Boss, like the 69 Boss Mustang 429 blue color. It was that color, her Challenger. And it had a 440 and a slapstick, 8 3/4 with a sure grip, and that was her first car. Had a decent little cam in it. 10 windows. It was a really cool car. Had some US mag slots on it, skinnies and bigs, and that was her first car. And so I was in high school, I think senior year or junior year or something, and my mom and dad and my sister went out of town for some reason. I don't remember why. But they left me alone, home alone, big mistake, with all the cars and my sister's car. And it was the weekend. I'd never driven my sister's car, and so I took it for a little spin. It ran pretty good. I didn't beat on it because it was her car, and I'm a protective big brother. I love my sister, but I gotta tell you that it ran pretty good, and it laid some rubber down a little bit, but it ran pretty good. I hurriedly took it back home, and then I think we picked up one of the other cars. Cameron went with me on this one. He didn't go with me in her car, I don't think. I think I did that one on my own. I didn't want to involve him, but he did go with me in the other one. So we got back and we opened the garage door and took the 57. My parents, when I was a kid, when I was growing up, I'm like 10 or so or 9, and my dad buys a 57 four-door Bel Air, 283, gorgeous car. I mentioned it earlier, and had it like totally done, painted red and white, factory cloud pattern interior, all that stuff redone, like basically restored without taking the frame off. But the engine was completely stock with a power glide. White walls, the whole thing was really cool. And this is in Reno, hot as nights kind of a thing. And so, of course, I love driving 57s. That's what probably hooked me on them, for sure. That and this girl that I was really into, her dad had, like, Nomads and stuff. And, I always like try 5s. But anyway, I digress. Back to the story. So Cameron and I hop in the 5.7, and we're just going to go cruising around downtown Reno. So we're out rolling around, going up and down Virginia Street, doing the cruise, saying hi to people, whatever, checking out chicks. And we come rolling up we're heading south down Virginia, and we come up right next to the Circus. And we're on the far right hand lane, and we're just sitting there at a stoplight, I don't know, talking about this, talking about that. All of a sudden, the rear doors opened up, and in piles this, big old Mexican dude and a bunch of chicks. And he says like, hey man, take me down to blah, blah, blah. And I look at Cameron, I'm like, we're not a taxi, dude. And he's like, oh, well, can he take me down there? And we're like, yeah, why not? So off we go. And he pays us to take him down there. I forget where we went, but it was like, there were girls sitting up front and girls in the back with this guy. And he was a really cool guy. Hanging out, talking to us. He loved the 57. Was like really complimentary. And we were just kind of like rolling along as a taxi. I forget where we went. Took him, I don't remember. Cameron might remember. But, we dropped him off wherever we were going. And he threw us some bucks and off we went. And they didn't make a mess. They didn't tear up anything. But that was a shock. Like, I wasn't ready for that. And then we took it back home. And I think we took another vehicle out. I don't know, something else. Maybe my pickup, a 59 GMC. Or we took, I think we have a satellite then? I don't remember. Sports satellite? Might have taken the sports satellite out. Laid rubber in that, but we didn't do any burnouts. We didn't beat on the 57. That car wasn't meant for beating on, but yeah, for a while there we were a taxi. Didn't mean to be. And then one night I was down messing around like crazy downtown. I think I was in the Chevelle after Cameron and I swapped, and I was doing burnouts and acting a fool for sure. And I got like the paddy wagon bumped me. I was sitting over. Okay, so this is another burnout. I pull around like this, the Dairy Queen, and there's like a grocery store and Goodyear and like a wedding chapel thing in a parking lot. And I was late at night, and I pulled in and I nosed up against the telephone pole because I didn't have a line lock, because that would work. And I threw in gear and just sat there roasting the tires, smoking them pretty good. And I wasn't really paying attention to what was going on. I mean, it wasn't really windy and smoke was just rolling around. And all of a sudden, I get like a on the driver's door, and I'm like, what the? There's a flashlight moving around. And I roll the window down. And mind you, I'm still in gear, smoking them. And this officer's head sticks in there, and he screams at me some expletives, 4-letter words like, what the? Do you think you're... And I'm like, and I'm still doing it. And I'm like, kind of like, still going, smoking them. And he like looks around, he's like, stop. And so I stop and put in neutral and, kind of sitting there. And he's like, I'm like, where'd you come from? And he goes, didn't you feel me? And I'm thinking, dude, I'm up against a telephone pole. What are you talking about? He's like, well, I bumped you. And about that time, the smoke is clearing, and I can kind of see the Christmas lights coming around, And I'm like, oh, man. Wow. And I look back, and it's the paddy wagon. And the paddy wagon, if you guys don't know what that is, the paddy wagon is a big, like, G-body van that they go around picking up drunk people in and hauling them out to the drunk tank in the jail out there. And he's like, I think he was more shocked that I just kept going when he was back there, and I couldn't hear him because the car had like headers and that crazy small block and like little cherry bombs that dumped out off the thing was loud, really loud, like deafening, and no interior because Hot Rod Magazine said if you take every 100 pounds was a tenth of a second. So there was pretty much nothing in this car. It was just a shell because we were trying to get as light as we could get it, But yeah, I was smoking them pretty good. Cameron wasn't with me that night. I remember what he was doing. Probably with his girlfriend or something. Stupid girlfriend. Anyway, yeah, so the cop just kind of like got on me pretty good. And he told me that if he saw me down there again that night in that car, that he'd toss me in the paddy wagon and I'd be like one of his passengers. So of course I was like, yes sir, no sir, whatever, and yep. And he backed up and I took off and took the Chevelle home. And then I turned around, grabbed another car, and I came right back. Because he said, if I see you again tonight in the same car, your car's getting impounded and you're going to jail. So I came back in a different car, and I made sure I found him and I waved at him as I went by, because, at 17 or 16 or 18 or whatever, I wasn't really that smart. Now, kids, if you're watching this, especially my nephew, if you're watching this, I'm not the hero of this story. I'm the idiot. I'm the court jester fool of this story. Don't be dumb. And don't buy drugs. Become famous and they'll give them to you for free. No, I'm just kidding. What movie is that from? No. Anyway, back that up, erase all that, because that's not even funny. It is really funny, but it's not funny. Yeah, that's that story. I had a bunch of them in my head that I was trying to remember what they were, and they're just not all flowing right now. But Mom, Dad, I'm sorry about stealing the car. That one time. I mean, I took it a lot, but I took all the cars. I actually I knew all the position of all the boxes around them, and had them memorized where they were on the trunk, on the roof, and everything in the garage. And I took them all out, take the car, bring it back, put it right back, unhook the speedometer so it wouldn't grab any extra. And I knew exactly how much gas was in it, so I put the same amount of gas, just in case you guys are checking. I'm telling all my secrets. Oh, now you guys know. I'm not trying to give you any ideas, kids. Because deceit and dishonesty will always catch up to you. And it did. In fact, that brings me to another story. This story has that exact ending. And I'll tell you what happened. So, I was doing something stupid, probably. Still living at home. And that's not stupid. I was still living at home. And under my parents' roof, and just like any kid, when you live at home, you live under your parents' rules. Which, there's nothing wrong with that. That's the way it should be. My parents are really fair. I grew up in a really loving home. I don't want to make it sound like they were taskmasters and some sort of like horrible people. They weren't. They were super fair and super affectionate, and they loved us and they loved each other, and it was a good example for a boy and a daughter to learn, or a boy and a girl to learn how to be husbands and wives when we got older. Like, my parents are great role models. They're still very much in love, and it's kind of gross. But, as it's just kind of, I'm not trying to be, but it's kind of like, they're still like their high school sweethearts or whatever, even though they met in college. But the college sweethearts isn't the term. Anyway, my point is they were super fair, and they disciplined fairly. They were never overbearing, and I was probably really hard to handle, as you can imagine. And, being a smart kid and a smart aleck and thinking I was smarter than everybody else and, sneaky. In fact, I had like 11 driver's licenses because I would have to give them my driver's license when I got in trouble, but I would just go down and get a copy and tell them I lost my driver's license. So I had like 11 driver's licenses at one time, copies, and I had, I don't know, multiple sets of keys for every car I owned and most of the cars they owned that were old and cool. And, yeah, I had all sorts of stuff. Anyway, that's not here nor there. That's just, me working at being dumb. Anyway, this is one of those stories. So I had that old pickup that I was in love with, that my dad got me, and then sold me for more money. He made a profit. It's a good lesson. Made a profit on his own kid. It's a good profit. Good lesson to learn. Anyway, I was grounded, and I wasn't supposed to be driving around for, I think, grades or something, but, late at night, I snuck out the back window, and we lived up, the condo was up here, and at the bottom of the hill, I may have told you this, there was like a street that turned, and then a big old dirt parking lot where everybody with spare cars parked their cars down there. So I had several down there, and everybody had cars down there. So we'd sneak down, Cameron would come down, so my street came this way, and about halfway down the street, or most of the way down the street, 2/3 was another street that Cameron went, and then we would go down to this bottom road down here. So he lived like 3 houses down this street, so he would come down and I would come down. We'd meet, go down to the truck, push it down below on the bottom road, and it was a stick, fire it in gear after we got way down the street, and idle it down and take off with it, and we'd be gone for hours. Almost every single night we did this. After, like, we'd come home 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, and fly up the hill as fast as we could, up the street, coast it up in the dirt, park it in the same exact spot, shut it off, get out, and then he and I would split our ways. I'd go home and climb back in my window up the wall. And at that time, I worked for the groundskeeping for the maintenance for like sprinklers and stuff. That was like my summer job or whatever. And so I stacked all of our excess 5-gallon paint cans against the wall because the management shed for all the utility stuff and everything we were fixing, everything, all the maintenance stuff was right behind our condo, and there was like a grassy area between the next building. And so we were on the end and I was in the back corner on the end and the shed was behind. So I stacked all the paint cans against my wall, below my bedroom window. So I could climb out on the cans and had like stairs and go back up the cans and go in the window. And I did that for a long time. So we did this every night for 3 weeks because I was grounded for 3 weeks. On the last night, coming home, on the last night, we get done and I'm sneaking into my window. And as I head out of the bathroom, because there was a hallway, so I come up the window into my room. I was in the far back. The kitchen and my bedroom and the living room were all downstairs, and there was a bathroom. Everybody else lived upstairs at the top. So I had my own room. It was perfect for sneaking out. But I would go into the bathroom, and my mom was standing at the end of the hallway stairs right there. So she heard me. I think she saw me coming up from the kitchen window, walking up the street, and then heard me climb in, and then saw me coming out. And rightfully so, she busted me. And it didn't go good for me, as it should have. I probably should have been punished worse if they really knew all the stuff that was going on. They probably would have, grounded me for my entire adult life, but they didn't. And if I was a young kid now and everybody says this, if you know what you knew then, if you know what you know now, if you knew it then, you would you would do stuff differently. And I think for me, I would treat people differently. I wouldn't take them for granted. I wouldn't take advantage of them. I would just be, I'd be better at it. And I wouldn't have put my parents through so much problems. So, Mom, Dad, I'm sorry that I did that. I really am. That was just, I can't imagine what it'd be like to have a kid like me, But you did great. I think I turned out all right, I sure learned a lot from you guys, and I was raised right for sure. And I'm really proud of my parents. And I'm proud to be their kid, even though they're probably not all the time with me, because, I was probably a super big handful. I can imagine. That was a headache. I have a hard enough time with my dog. I can't imagine what it'd be like having me as a kid. But yeah. I can't think of any more stories that I want to put in tonight. But anyway, that's story time.